Feels like we've been here before, Dillian. Calling for the WBC to order Wilder to face him in world title fight instead of Fury. Dillian said he's always tried to be the solution since the start of his career. He says he'll fight anyone. Dillian says a WBC title clash against Deontay Wilder should be ordered, with the American's fight against Tyson Fury set to be delayed. So an interim position is what he's suggesting. Although Dillian does hold a WBC interim belt already, it would stand to reason that Wilder should fight Dillian until Fury's ready to go again, if Fury's ready to go again. Dillian is citing a similar ruling from the WBC, who previously changed Vitaly Klitschko's status to allow a fight between Bermans Deverne and Chris Arreola before Wilder started his own WBC reign. He said this is why they have the interim championship. Didn't they elevate Vitaly to champion emeritus or something? Yeah, if the champion is injured, the interim champion should step up. From what I see here, they still got Deontay Wilder ranked number 1, but the fight against Fury would be a voluntary, so it's not a mandatory. So Dillian would need the WBC to mandate Deontay Wilder first. And of course, Wilder's got to want the fight. I mean, Wilder had a lot to say about Dillian recently. It's time to show and prove. Time to show and prove. You know, if I say he's frightened of Deontay Wilder, you're going to say, well, he's not. But he's not fighting him anyway. See, I don't want to get into debates with other so-called boxing fans about that. It's a waste of time. You can defend your man all you like that he's not afraid, but he's not fighting him anyway. So that's the bottom line. You know what I mean? If you feel you're right in your mind, cool. But Wilder, to me, is a little too Tyson Fury obsessed. And it's unhealthy right now, the obsession. Without it trying to look like I'm trying to mock the guy, he's almost like a Tyson Fury groupie. He can't do anything without Tyson Fury. It's out of my hands. The only thing I can try and do is put a positive spin and put some positive energy in there and hope Wilder does go for the Dillian fight. The boxing fans would love that. And hope the WBC says, yeah, this is a sensible solution. But there's a duality in boxing which a lot of people are not understanding. It takes two to tango. It takes Wilder to agree to the fight. It takes me as the Dillian fan, because I'm rooting for Dillian all the way. All the way. I'm rooting for Dillian and I'm picking Dillian to win. But Wilder and his fan base have to be receptive as well. I don't want Dillian to get knocked out by Wilder. I don't want to see that. But I'm willing, if Dillian is willing, I'm willing to see him put it on the line and take Wilder out. Now, if you're a Wilder fan and you're not saying something similar to what I just said there, and if Wilder isn't saying something similar to what Dillian said, then we know who doesn't want the fight. And there's no need for me, you, to go back and forth and debate and debate and debate, because that's not how boxing disputes are settled. They're settled in the ring by the combatants. It's as simple as that. From now, I've got to look at boxing media and YouTube channels. And weigh up if you're trying to make these convoluted arguments in what is basically a simple process. Wilder is not a mandatory challenger for Tyson Fury. He's contracted to fight Tyson Fury. Fury says he's got coronavirus. This is an opportunity for Wilder to get back in the title picture and get that WBC belt moving again. It's sitting there static for way too long. Tyson Fury fans, and more disturbingly, Deontay Wilder fans, Deontay Wilder himself, a lot of media are too obsessed with Tyson Fury and his 2 championship victories in the whole of his career. Way too obsessed with it now. And it's unhealthy for boxing. To compare this guy to a great fighter with 2 championship wins in his whole career since 2008 is the most unhealthiest thing to happen to boxing. Period. When Tyson Fury, or if Tyson Fury sees that the WBC belt is back in circulation, great fights are being made. Wilder, Dillian, Andy Ruiz, undisputed with AJ. Or if Usyk wins, undisputed with Usyk. Undisputed. Because right now, Fury's running his mouth, I don't care about undisputed. When you see someone with 4 belts, let's see if he doesn't care about it then. Yeah? Then you'll smoke Tyson Fury out. Right now, Tyson Fury's bored with boxing. Because everybody's telling him he's a great without fighting Anthony Joshua or fighting for undisputed anyway. You know, you've got Ring Magazine and the Boxing News, the oldest publications who should know better, You've just given Tyson Fury all the accreditation by saying he's champion, even though he doesn't want to fight for undisputed. But that's the guy you've given the crown with his 2 victories. One of them victories, Vladimir Klitschko, Anthony Joshua beat, defending his IBF belt and the vacant WBA belt. Joshua beat him, knocked him out. That was Tyson Fury's work. He cleaned up Tyson Fury's rematch and retired Vladimir Klitschko. Tyson Fury didn't retire Klitschko. Leon Spinks wasn't free of the ghost of Muhammad Ali until he fought the rematch. And he didn't win the rematch. He lost. Ali got the belt back. You got to finish what you started. You could say the same with Tyson Fury, that he needs to finish what he started with Deontay Wilder. But if he doesn't want to fight Wilder, what are we going to do? Wait around forever for Tyson Fury? I don't think so. And that shouldn't be something that Wilder desires either. I don't hate Deontay Wilder. I just don't understand some of the stuff he does. This is getting creepy. To be following Fury around like that is creepy. When there's other good fights out there for Wilder. Let Tyson Fury do Tyson Fury. He already gave Deontay Wilder the runaround after the first fight they had in 2018 and went and fought Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin, holding up potential undisputed fights. You see, until I saw the boxing news using them transatlantic boxing ratings as their guideline to select who's a champion and shut out the alphabet bodies, I realized that it's not the alphabet bodies who are messing the sport up. It's people like Boxing News and Transatlantic Boxing Rankings and the Ring Magazine. You are the problem. For one, you're putting too much stock into Tyson Fury beating Vladimir Klitschko using old school metaphors like he's the man who beat the man. You're putting too much stock into that. You're trying to be too Burt Sugar with it. Well, he's the lineal champion. When your reasoning behind this is flawed. All you're looking at is a graph and a chart to say he beat him and he beat him. That makes him lineal. That doesn't work like that, actually. If you know boxing history, it doesn't work like that. Not all lineal champions are the same. 2. Whether it's a lineal champion or a sanctioning body champion, what are the standards? If you get popped for PEDs, does your claim to be a champion to a sanctioning body still hold up? And does your claim to the lineal championship still hold up? Now, if your answer is no, as it should be, well, Tyson Fury is no longer the lineal champion from 2016. We can write that off. Now, he is the WBC champion. Not taking that away from him. He is the WBC champion. We saw him beat the hell out of Deontay Wilder last year to win that. You see, I appreciate you may be trying to do something good, although you may have an agenda. I'm not sure yet. I can't commit to one answer. But when you're trying to do this revisionist history and you haven't really studied it properly, let me break it down. When Muhammad Ali fought Larry Holmes in 1980, coming out of retirement from October 1978, he fought Holmes in September 1980. Nobody was calling for Ali to come back. Nobody was. Except the hangers-on around him who was using him as a meal ticket. They knew he couldn't fight no more. Somebody got the dumb idea to feed him full of thyroid pills to make him look slim and lean, but potentially could have led him to his death that day in the ring with Larry Holmes. Right? Nobody wanted to see that fight, except a few people who were motivated by the money. That fight was about money, about people making money. The casinos, the hangers-on, Don King, it was all about money. And then they paraded it off like you was passing the torch. The torch went out a long time ago. The only way they could get away with that fight is because Ali was a freeweight champion. Ali was the most recognizable human being on the planet, and all the other stuff you know about. That's the only way they could pull that off. With Joe Louis passing on lineage to Ezra Charles. Well, that's because Joe was an 11-year reigning champion. Not somebody who had 2 world title fights since 2008. If you really think Fury's resume is as significant as Ali and Joe Louis, then you're doing it all wrong. You're doing it all wrong. You see, when James J. Jeffries passed on lineage to Jack Roots and Marvin Hart for the vacant title that he gave up, retiring as undefeated heavyweight champion. Marvin Hart won the fight and he was champion, but the public didn't accept it. And when they would question Jeffries about Marvin Hart being the champion, you know what Jeffries said? I didn't say he was champion. I didn't say he was champion. But maybe if we give it time, he could grow into a legitimate champion that we can respect. This is general consensus standard from the public. This is organic shit. Not some contrived bullshit that you're putting together with transatlantic boxing ratings. You see, if you had the proper man who brought money back into the sport, who was scoring knockouts and was tying up belts, was consistent, fighting his mandatories, not taking PEDs, and his name is Anthony Joshua, if you installed him as the champion in your media outlets or magazines, we'd have an undisputed champion right now. And you wouldn't have to be doing all this bullshit going through hoops. Well, we're going to block out sanctioning bodies and then make the problem even worse by putting a man who said, I don't care about undisputed. You're putting a man up there who's had 2 world championship fights in 13 years who says he doesn't care about undisputed. You've put him as champion because he beat the man who beat the fucking man. Dillian Whyte sitting there for hundreds and hundreds of days when Dillian was even proposing to fight Tyson Fury, when Deontay Wilder was sidelined, injured. Not dissimilar to how Tyson Fury is sidelined now with COVID. So now we're contemplating Dillian Whyte getting his title shot, and then Fury can go and do what he wants if he can beat Dillian and go have his 3rd fight with Wilder. Tyson Fury said, I don't understand why nobody will give Dillian a fight, meaning AJ and Wilder, even though AJ fought him already and made Dillian another offer, which I'm sorry, Dillian, you did turn down. He said, I'll give him a fight if I'm champion. And then when a window of opportunity with Wilder sidelined opened up for him to be good to his word, oh, you're a stocky plodder, nobody wants to see you fight. I'm only here for the big fights. When asked about Alexander Usyk, they don't want to see no Ukraine Eastern European champions. They want the champions to come from Britain and America. This is the fucking idiot you've installed as your champion. An underachiever. You cocked all this shit up. You gave the power to the wrong person. His promoter said arbitration won't be a problem. We're going to get undisputed. They cocked that up. This guy is cocking shit up all the time. And you're saying he's the champion of the division because of one victory over Vlad and a victory over Wilder? Wilder ducked Vladimir Klitschko to fight for undisputed back in the day. And he didn't fight Vitaly Klitschko for the WBC belt. He waited for Klitschko to retire and then took on Berman Stavern. Alexander Usyk popped dirty before his his aborted title challenge against Wilder. But eventually, he was exonerated, and in fact, he won the lawsuit against Team Wilder. This was going to be Wilder's first credible opponent. Did Wilder go back and fight Povetkin? No. Who had to clean that up? Anthony Joshua. What about the Charles Martin fight? AJ's first belt. You do know that Wilder was in negotiation with Charles Martin before Eddie Hearn persuaded Team Martin to take the fight. Anthony Joshua was basically cleaning up these guys' mess and getting no credit for it. Deontay Wilder gave all his power to Tyson Fury, and the media have given Tyson Fury way too much power as well, and he sucked boxing dry. He runs out on his rematch obligations. He backed out of a fight with David Price for the British title. He backed out of a fight with Kubrat Pulev for the European title. He backed out of the rematch with Vladimir Klitschko for 3 scraps. He backed out of an immediate rematch in 2018 with Deontay Wilder, parading around the place like he won the fucking fight. They gave him a draw. I thought he won, but the bottom line is the official result was a draw. And he's parading around like he's champion. Wilder, like a lovesick puppy, waited around for this guy until 2020 and got battered, rather than fighting Anthony Joshua for undisputed and a career highest payday. That's why I'm going to repeat again. When you hear Wilder telling Fury, oh, I would have got more for fighting Joshua, that's him saying, I know I fucked up. You took your multi-million-dollar stake and played poker with a man who had lint in his pockets. Until Team Wilder and the PBC tried to engineer a situation with the Lineal champion. Who was calling him Lineal champion when he was 300 pounds? Who was calling him Lineal champion in the UK? Busted for PEDs. No British license. Who was calling him Lineal champion, having not fulfilled his rematch obligations to Vlad? Who was calling him Lineal champion? They started calling him that. to help promote the fight. WBC champion against the Lineal champion. When Fury did have all 3 belts, when was he calling himself Lineal champion? Who called themselves Lineal champion when they got sanctioning body straps? Who was calling George Foreman Lineal champion? Until he started ducking Tony Tucker, the Axel Schultz rematch, and ended up with no sanctioning body belts. Then they started calling him Lineal champion. People only call himself Lineal champion when they screw up what they have with the sanctioning body belts. Who was calling Michael Spinks Lineal champion when he beat Larry Holmes? No, he was IBF world champion. IBF world champion. Who became Lineal champion when he didn't want to do any of the heavy lifting in a unification tournament, like fighting Tony Tucker, his mandatory. So he became Lineal champion, fighting Stephen Tankstead and Jerry Cooney, who was out the ring for at least 4 years, until Mike Tyson splattered him all over the canvas in less than a minute and tied it all up. Undisputed, Lineal and whatever. But you know, here we go again. Who can say 100% Tyson Fury has coronavirus? But let me tell you this now. If I was forced to bet my last on whether I believe him or not, I'm going for I don't believe him. So right now, while the Ring magazine and the Boxing News and all these other publications have Fury as the world champion, we have to wait around for Tyson Fury to make an appearance to see who he wants to cherry pick and fight. While the unified champion, who's had 3 straps since 2018, has tried to make undisputed on how many occasions now, it's just getting disrespected. You see, I realise now it's not really down to the sanctioning bodies why we can't get undisputed or the fights we want. It's the media. It's the media and their Tyson Fury sycophantic obsession with a man, let me repeat, 2 world title fights in a 13-year career. 2. You're the reason he can go on ESPN trying to sell a fight against Tom Schwartz as a legitimate world title fight. Because, you know, he's Lineal champion. You're the reason he can do this. You're the reason he can swan out of all his obligations and talk about he doesn't care about undisputed. Because you hold him up on this big pedestal. You're a disgrace. And you suck the life out of heavyweight boxing. When we have a champion, I'm not saying he's unbeatable. I'm not saying Joshua's unbeatable. I'm saying he's capable. He's reliable. He is good. He does punch hard. He is athletic. He does look the part. He does have 3 straps. He's trying to make undisputed. He brought the money back into the division. Kevin Iole, not Deontay Wilder. You've got a champion with all this upside that you can build a division around. But instead, you choose an underachiever who doesn't like training, doesn't like defending his belts. He's a liar. He's unreliable. Look, and it's Deontay Wilder, his fan base, and his media, and the PBC who have helped build up Tyson Fury as well by following him around when he had nothing to offer and not giving us undisputed. And then they want to talk about white supremacy and being shortchanged by the white man and the white devil and all this and that, when they couldn't wait to jump into bed with Tyson Fury. And now they're all bent out of shape because he doesn't want nothing to do with them. Well, why would he? Doesn't need you for anything. Right now, you're like a leech to it.
Like that, Mommy?
How come you don't want me, man?
The heavyweight division needs champions like Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson who fight all comers. Evander Holyfield, he did duck Razor Ruddock, but that's what it needs right now. Lennox Lewis's take on all comers. What a lot of people don't get is I want to enjoy Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. And I don't have no problem them doing what they do. It's when they're getting so much credit for basically putting a roadblock in front of undisputed. The way both of them have treated the number 1 contender for how many years now. The total lunacy of Bob Arum and Al Heyman thinking that it's acceptable to have a 3-fight series that's going to stretch out till when now? Maybe 2022? Started in 2018? So what does Joe Joyce, Joseph Parker Ruiz, I don't know how Luis Ortiz is ranked number 3, Michael Hunter, what do they do until then? You know, these magazines want to place so much value on Fury beating the man who beat the man, but don't place no value on a unified champion who's fought how many mandatories out there. You look at the 4 sanctioning bodies and pick out all the fighters that Anthony Joshua has fought. Then you get these idiots trying to tell you, yeah, that is true, but it's not very impressive nonetheless. How fuck what you think, man. How fuck what you think. You've put too much energy in the wrong guy. For whatever agenda, I'm not even going to bother try and pick my brain to figure out. But you've put too much energy and it's hurt the heavyweight division. And then when I think about it, it's lucky Mike Tyson was American and the Ring magazine is American. Because if Mike Tyson was British, like Lennox Lewis or like Anthony Joshua, they would have shit all over Mike Tyson's unification wins. Yeah, well, who's Bone Crusher Smith? Who's Trevor Burbick? Who's Tony Tucker? Who are they? We don't recognize them. And they would have held up Michael Spinks. Because in all the time when Mike Tyson was knocking out full-grown heavyweights with title straps and ranked contenders like Pinkel and Thomas, they had Michael Spinks installed as the champion. These idiots. These total imbecilic idiots. Michael Spinks ducked the unification tournament, but you're still going to keep him as champion because he beat Larry Holmes, the Lineal champion, who beat Muhammad Ali, who shouldn't have been in the ring. What a ridiculous deduction. It was Mike Tyson who revived boxing and knocking out anyone recognizable. Ferdy Pacheco, the fight doctor, got out of the Muhammad Ali camp because he saw what was going on. There's no way Muhammad Ali legitimately passed all their medicals after that Ernie Shavers fight. Ali was a willing participant, let's not get this wrong, but the leeches enabled him to have one more fight after the Holmes fight, but they couldn't do it in America because there's no credible athletic commission who could get Ali to pass a medical. So they held the fight in the Bahamas. That's what kind of shape Ali was in. Now, I don't take the win away from Holmes. He done what he had to do. After the hype started building up, they're saying, yeah, this is for Lineal. But everybody know Ali should have been sitting down. Nobody expected Ali to come back after the Spinks fight. One of the only Lineal claims I can pay any homage to was Muhammad Ali, when they stripped him because of politics. There were a few states in America who didn't recognize Joe Frazier. The British Boxing Board of Control didn't recognize Joe Frazier. And Ali never lost his undisputed claim in the ring. Eventually he fought Joe Frazier and lost. But I can understand people upholding Ali's claim. A little different from some of the others. Tyson Fury's claim after being absent for how long? Absolute nonsense. Absolute load of garbage to even make it comparable to Ali. Pathetic. And that's why you magazines are dying out like that, because you're not equipped for this high-level boxing talk. You're not equipped. You're not equipped. I used to look up to the Boxing News. I used to look up to the Ring magazine. But I realize now, both of them have fell off. They're washed up.